Welcome to Access Europe for August 2025. My name is Colin Riddington, and I'm going to be talking this month about new and forthcoming features in Access. And despite all of the comments that you endlessly get in forums about Access is dead and they've not done anything to it for many, many years, there has been a whole raft of new features, some small, some big, that have been added in the last couple of years or so. And I'm going to be talking about some of those features in today's presentation. Starting with modern charts. Modern charts were introduced in Access 2019, but were significantly improved last year. And early this year, they added VBA Support to allow you to code every part of your charts, including at runtime. A lesser used feature probably is Project Signing, which was always available back in the days of Access 2003 and before for MDB files, but when they changed to the ACCDB format, they didn't include that functionality. They finally added that a couple of years ago, but they added some additional functionality late last year and early this year, including the ability to do project signing from the command line and finally to timestamp your code signatures as well. I'll explain what that means later. A fairly small item, but one that I've been nagging for a couple of years, was to add a Create SQL Query button to the ribbon. They've done many improvements to the Monaco SQL Editor. Everyone had been looking forward to that hugely for many years. When it finally came out, it was very buggy. It had lots of things that people didn't like, and it was a massive disappointment, and many people turned it off. They've been addressing the bugs. They've also been addressing many of the criticisms about it, and 3 significant improvements have been added in the last month or so, depending on your channel. The 2 features that are not yet available and were originally designed to arrive in June and July, but will now start rolling out in September, are responsive forms. In other words, basically adapting your forms to fit your screen size and your resolution, and also large monitor support. So those of you that have got 4K monitors, 40 inches wide and so on, will finally be able to fill your screen with Access forms. So let's take each of those one at a time. VBA support for modern charts was added to the current channel at the end of last year, December 2024. And that means you can edit chart properties if you wish at runtime, or just build them as you load the form. It's up to you. The 3 screenshots there, I know they're too small to see, but I'm going to be showing this in a minute, are all the same chart that has been changed at runtime. And that's just 3 of the different possibilities that you could do with that one form alone. Let me just open a demo file. And this is a file that I used at Access DevCon back in April. I covered far too much for an hour, and I don't intend to do very much of this at all today. But the idea was to show people there what you can do with charts at runtime. So there's various different chart types. There's now a grand total of 25 different chart types, some of which are more suitable than others for the particular example. I've already done that one. The particular example that I showed there. Some, like column charts, were fairly old. Others, like funnel charts, that really is a funnel chart but unsorted, are new, as are things like the Pareto or Pareto chart and so on. I won't show you all of those, but what I could do is loop through all 25 of those in turn to show you the different ones, but you can look at that at your leisure. Charts are complicated. They have an awful lot of different properties, a total of 85 that I'm aware about. So I have itemized all of these here. I use these in different examples with this example app, and they're broken down into 4 different things. The object itself, the chart, any series you've got, any series collections you've got, axis collection, only a couple of things, and also the values collection, only a couple of things. I won't go through them, but they are there now. Let me show you how you can build a chart. So, a fairly boring chart that is certainly not exciting in any way whatsoever. It's just a standard bar chart. There's no title. There are labels on the axes, but that's about it. Let me just go to the code for that, bring that across, and hopefully that code is big enough to see. If anyone wants it larger, please tell me. So what that button does when I actually said build charts, it then defines a few things there. It looks for an existing form 1, and if it does exist, it deletes it, so it starts from scratch. It creates a form, it says where it wants the form chart control to go, and then it creates that control for that, calls it chart 0, and puts it in the position says there with the size there. It then sets the chart properties, sets it to a chart type 4, which is a stacked bar chart, tells it the row source, sets no legend, sets no title. And that is all. I've got more things I'm going to add in a minute there. When I close so when it's done that, it then changes back to form view, and having saved that, and you can see that there. So I'm going to change that now from a stacked bar chart to a Pareto chart, which I've already shown you. Save that, go back again and build that, and I've now got a totally different looking chart, which you may not understand this. If you don't know what a Pareto chart is, the line there shows the proportion of the cumulative total of values. So you can see how much of the total is available from each of these items. These are the number of forms, queries, reports, and so on for a particular database that I've got. It's got an awful lot of queries. As you can see there, something like 1,600. Right, let's do some changes again. Let's go back to here. I'm going to change it to a column chart this time. And now I'm going to add a little bit more information. We'll put in the debug line here. So we're going to go down to as far as this, uncommenting it. So the chart automatically takes the row source. It then transforms it into basically a crosstab query that it uses to build the chart. I'm now going to add a border style, which is going to be dashes, a border color. I'm going to add the font size for a title. I'm going to make it have a title this time. I'm going to call it that. I'm going to give it axis titles for the font size for the axis. Similarly, the primary axis font primary axis title and size. I'm going to give it a legend, call it the size there, and put it at the top. Although I could change all of those. So we've got that. And now if I build the chart again, we've got a column chart, we've got a title, we've got a legend, labels on the axes there, and also we have got a hideous dashed border there. Let's do some changes again. So drag that up once more. I need to close that. And this time I'm going to change the legend position to be, I assume 3 is at the bottom, but I honestly have forgotten where that is. I'm going to change the border style to something else, and I'm going to change the color of that to green. I'm also now going to add some properties for the chart series and save that once more. And build the chart, and we've now got on there, right, we've got the legend, and we've called it now object type. We've got a trend line, you can just about see probably in gray there. We've got the values on each of the columns there, and we've got grid lines, both major and minor. And we could do many more things with it than that, but hopefully you get the idea of it. Let's show something more interesting than that, or let's do some formatting now. Here's a fairly simple column chart. This time each of the different columns is a different color. It's exactly the same data source as before. Right, so let's change the back style to normal, and that was the last color I used, green. It's pretty hideous, but I'm going to use hideous colors just so you can see them more clearly. I'm going to change the border style. I'll change that to sparse dots. I'm going to use a different color on here. Let's make it red. And I'm going to change the border width to 6. Doesn't it look absolutely hideous? Right, add a title. I can change the font. Let's do the inevitable comic song. Okay, I can change the color of that in the same way. I can change the size of the font, etc., etc. With this, let's just bring that a bit smaller again. I can add a subtitle. Again, I could change the size of that, the name and so on. I can add the legend. I can put it wherever I like. Let's put it on the left this time. and I can add axis titles. You can just about see them. A bit unclear because of the back color there. Now, you can do all these changes there, but you probably wouldn't want to save all those hideous changes. So if you just close the form, it will then reopen with the default values it had at the beginning. On the other hand, if I just add a few of these and click save, then next time it will open with those items saved. So I've got a choice here. I can leave the default but modify it at runtime, or I can modify at runtime and then save the new settings if I actually like what they are. So if you want to, you can give your users the opportunity to do that. You can also more usefully do this with the data as well. Now, the data is just a series of values month by month for a particular insurance policy, premium ones here. I've got one blank value deliberately, although I can add that if I want to. And I'm showing this at the moment grouped by quarter. Let's change that to be grouped by month. And you can see all the values there. I can change that from sum, which is the number for that month, but there's only one value per month, so it is actually the value. I could change that to count, and I've got one value for each month except this one here, when I've got nothing there. Let's change it back to sum. And I could change the child type again, as I did before, and I've just limited it to column or bar stacked. I can add a legend. At the moment, I've got no legend, no specific legend, but I can actually have a legend for the year and month values. And now you see when I do that, each of those columns becomes a different color, and you can see the color for each of the months there. Or I could actually have the values for that as well. Again, different colors there. Let's change that back to none a second there. Now, let's change this from group by month again to grouped by quarter. And what I should have said as I do all these things, notice the transformed row source, which is a read-only property. You have no control over it at all. That will alter as I alter any of these settings. So back to month again. Okay, you can see they're formatting by month. Change it to quarter, and you can see it now formats that automatically here. Now watch what happens if I change the legend categories for the series here, and you can now see the individual values grouped by quarter. So there's 3 values in that quarter, only 1 value for that quarter, only 2 for that quarter, and so on. And similarly, if I went to that there, you get the same sort of idea. If I group by year, again, you get the same values within there. So your users now can get a huge variation in what their charts look like at runtime if you choose to give them this sort of functionality, right? You do not need to design multiple forms for multiple different types of charts any longer. With the old classic charts, although you have some functionality that isn't in modern charts, you only could make changes in design view. You can do this all at runtime. Now, there's many more things here. For where you've got multiple series, you can actually define the colors for each of those there. You can have labels for one series, that's this one here. I can change to a different series. I can add the labels for that one. I can add it for the third one if I want to do so. I can change the grid line type as well. If I go to the premium there, major and minor grid lines, you can see the major ones are thicker, the minor ones are thinner. If I change that to major only, and now if I go to a different series, basic, and I change this now to minor, and I've got a different grid line color, and I'm going to make it even more hideous than that. So you can now see clearly the different grid lines. I'm not saying you would want to do that, but you can do that easily. And I can also change the sort order here, ascending, descending, or just by month there. So all of these possibilities are here. Most of those apply to all different chart types. There are some additional things that apply only to line charts, for example, how you deal with missing values, trend lines, marker types, and so on. Let's add a marker type to one of those series there. they don't apply to, for example, pie charts. There are other things that apply to pie charts, arc charts, donut charts, which are two of the new ones. Here's an arc chart with two rings there, something you couldn't do with a pie chart. That's the donut version of it, which is basically the two halves of an arc there. And again, you can change the number of decimal places on the, oops, sorry, I'm doing num there. This is the seats are on the inner ring here. Change that percentage. I've got 1 decimal place. Change that to 5 decimal places. Bit excessive there, but you get the idea. Change it back to number and it just ignores the number of decimal places. And again, on the outside there, you've got the votes for this particular election here. And you can also choose where you put your labels and so on. So different possibilities there. Again, I can change the sort order. One thing that is irritating and you've got no control over is you can't actually keep the colors the same if you change the sort order, which can be a little bit confusing here, especially where if you are based in the UK, you'll realize these colors don't in any way correspond to the colors of the political parties. So there's many more as well. Here's a funnel chart. Funnel charts, right, don't actually make any sense at all unless you sort them. So if we change that sort order to descending, you can then see it looks like a funnel. Many more things you can do. Here is, for example, a word cloud. And the only thing about that which is disappointing is you can have any color you like as long as it's black. You can change the orientation. You can change the shape slightly. You may not notice the difference particularly here, but you can change the appearance of it. What you can't do is change the color of that. So there's many more things, and each of these different chart types has got its own individual functionality there. The last one there I'm going to cover later on in this session here, so I'll ignore that for now. I will come back to that. I've just about covered all of the things I wanted to do in charts for now. There's a long article on my website with this and some videos as well there. Any questions?
Yes, I've got some bunch of questions I put in the chat.
Hello, Ben. I've just discovered some of yours. Let me just see if there's anyone before you here. Adam Waller, are the constants available for properties like chart type? Yes, there are. Right, I've added a sub-data sheet here. Where I've got a property name, then there are enum values there. So the enum values is what I'm referring to in here. So for the chart type, there's 25 of them, 0 to 24. For the dash type, you've got 4 different values there. For combo chart type, you've got the ones that can be done from the combo chart where you mix and match different chart types and so on. So yes, there are enums for these, the legend position, left, right, top, bottom, 0, 1, 2, 3, not in the order I said it probably. So, right, yes, you have got all of the enums there. Hey, do you want to respond to that thing about enums before I go on to Ben? I see you've responded to that in the chat.
I think you've answered that. It was, what did I say? I was saying that I was also interested in getting the answer to that question. I think you've answered that.
Right. I mean, basically, there are enums for all of the different modern chart properties. There are some of the old classic chart properties that are carried through into modern charts where they never did do enums and there still aren't. So in those few cases, and I can't remember one off the top of my head, but in those few cases, you have to write the property name in full, which is irritating, but generally you don't need to. So for all of my combo boxes that I actually had here, right, so what I was doing with each of those was putting in the different value. That was a bad choice on there, but I was putting in all of the enum values here, right, for each of these. So there've been whatever these are, 1 and 4 and so on. Okay, right, Ben. Is there a way to format a chart with a built-in user interface and a mouse like Excel? Does all formatting need to be done with VBA? I don't really understand the question, to be honest.
In Excel, there's a panel that comes up on the side of the screen that lets you configure the color, the lines, the style.
Oh, right, okay. So then, sorry, I'm being very dense here. So when we get a chart here, if we go to design view, and click on that, you automatically get the property sheet showing, which has got huge numbers of things here. But the things that aren't covered in there are the specifically modern chart properties, and you use the chart setting task pane. So basically you've got the axis collection here, you've got the values collection there, and you've got various other things that will appear in here, and then the format will allow you to change whatever the properties are available for that particular chart type. So for this one, you've got border color, fill color, data label, and so on. But if I change the chart type, which irritatingly isn't in the task pane, it's here. Right, so if I change that to a pie chart, you will see, may have noticed that that list there changed slightly because pie charts have got different properties. If I change it to a radar chart, again, may have seen something slightly different here. A funnel chart, a word cloud, and so on. So you will get different things depending on what's, sorry, I was on the wrong thing there. That was the tab I meant to be on there. You'll get different things appearing according to which one you're doing. So that's the standard way of building a chart, is to do it in design view and to use the chart pane, the property sheet and the task pane. What I'm doing though is just doing it all at runtime, making it user friendly. Okay.
I think, Colin, what he's asking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, is do you have access to this stuff at runtime as you do in Excel? And I've sort of answered that, but you could perhaps give a more clear, full answer to clarify that. Is that right, Ben? Is that what you meant?
Okay, Ben seems to be silent at the moment. As soon as I go back to form view for runtime or whatever, both of those things will disappear. So no, you have no access to chart settings and so on at runtime. But of course, that is where the VBA code comes in.
And that's by design, I would have thought, because
that's right.
Makes a lot more sense than the Excel thing where you could have users come along and muck up your design in a way that you haven't allowed for.
That's it. So I'm not saying you should allow your users to do that. I'm just saying you can allow your users to do that if you want to. And of course, you don't have to allow them to do all of the things I'm showing here. You could allow them to do very limited things rather than every possible thing. My original plan when I did this example out was to have every single possible property available from a series of options up here. And when I realized how many there were, I gave up. I mean, it was just so complicated, it wasn't going to be worth the effort there. So you can make the changes with modern charts, but in answer to Dwayne's question, right, there's very limited changes that you can make at runtime with standard or classic charts, as they now call them there. Right, I'm running Access 365 and I'm on the beta channel, all right, so I've got things that may not all be available in earlier versions, but I know that the VBA code was added in version 2502. So everybody, sorry, no, it was added in 2412. So everybody should have that unless they're on the very old version of the semi-annual channel there. Okay, I think I've covered just about everything. Let me just move on.
What does the save button do on your application?
That if the user makes changes, it saves whatever changes they've made, and next time it will open with those changes in force.
But it doesn't write VBA.
What it's doing is it's saving that information to a table. So basically, there is no way by design, objects, right, normally are only changeable at design time, right? They're not changeable at runtime. That is built into the access model for just about every property. So what I'm doing is I'm getting around that by saving the properties to a table I've created for retrieval next time the form opens. Okay.
Is that an example of how we should also code when we do charts?
Yeah, if you want, no, it's an example of how you could do it if you want to. Use my example, look at my example, I'll give you the link later, try it out, see if you like it. If you like it, you're welcome to use that. I'm not saying you should do, I'm just saying you could do. Okay? I need to move on anyway, otherwise I'm going to run out of time here. As I mentioned earlier, project signing was always possible with MDB files, but it's never been possible with ACCDB files until, I think, December 2023, when you were first time able to add the ability to do that from within the VB editor, and I'll show you that shortly. They've added the ability to do command line signing now, which if you've got a batch of files to sign will save you having to open the file, sign it, close it, open another one. You can do it all from the command line. And you can also now timestamp your code signatures as well. Now, I wish I'd known that when I last had a proper commercial signature, code file, but I didn't know that. So my last code signing file there has lapsed and it's no longer any use whatsoever, which put me off a bit. Then after it had lapsed, I found out that the time stamping feature was added without any fanfare whatsoever. For those who've never done code signing, let me show you what this is about. If you distribute files to clients either over the internet or by other means, then it's useful for them to know that your file has not been altered in any way by anyone after you've finished with it and after you sent it out. And the way you do that was you go to VBE Tools, Digital Signature, and if you've got either a self-cert or a commercial certificate, then it will say the first one it comes to in there, or I can choose others that are available. So I've got 3 different self-certs. I've taken out my lapsed commercial certificate, Isle of Dogs, Mendit Data Systems, and so on. Let's add the Isle of Dogs one, and that's all I had to do. I've chosen it now, and if I look at the detail here, this is not a trusted certificate. I can use it on my machine, but it will not have any valid verification on anybody else's machine. To enable trust, I'd need to install it in the Trusted Root Certification Authorities store. I have done that for a different one, which is my Mendit Data Systems self-cert. So if I go onto that one here and click on Detail, then you can see its certificate is intended for following purposes: ensures software came from the software publisher, protects software from alteration after publication. Now, although that has been now trusted, and I can export that certificate and I can install it on another machine, I still can't use that self-cert on another machine. There is no way that I'm aware of. I know Aid thinks you can do it, and I think you probably could in the past, but I don't think you still can. You can't avoid, if you wish to do this for clients, you have to purchase a very expensive code signing certificate. It'll probably set you back about £300 or more for a year's certificate, and you can buy up to 3 years in one go, slightly cheaper than that. So you can add your certificate there. The advantage of it, as well as when you send it out, it shouldn't do smart screen warnings. The advantage is that there is no need anymore for your clients to have to save it to a trusted location. It is automatically trusted. They won't see a security banner. It will work immediately. So that is one of the advantages of this. But as I say, it's a bit clunky to have to do this with every single file in turn. So let me just take that off there. And I'm going to close this particular app. There's no significance in that there. And now, command line signing, warning, so I'm going to open the command window here. So with the command window open here, I've got a notepad file on my other screen to save me typing and making mistakes. Command line signing. There are 3 ways you can do this. Method number 1 is you put in full path to the access file. It needs to be 365 or goes back to 2016, this works. Then you put the path to the file that you want signed, space, /sign, and then you put in the name of a valid code signature here. And it will then automatically, as soon as you've done that, it will automatically add the signature to the file that you've done. So if I open that file again, it should have re-added the signature. We should have the signature on there. We have. Okay. Method number 1, let's remove it again. Obviously, you can do this for any file that you've got the path for. I find it a pain in the neck, if I'm honest, to keep putting in the entire access executable file path there. So I think I've closed the command window. I'm going to open it again. A slightly quicker way is to put start MS Access and then the file path thing to sign. This time I'm going to do it with the Isle of Dogs one, and in the background it opens it, and providing the signature is applied, it then will, after a couple of seconds or so, close. And if it doesn't show an error at that stage, then it has been signed again. I should now have the Isle of Dogs signature appeared on there. Let's remove it once more. And a third way of doing this is to miss out the access part completely. Now, with most command line switches, you don't need, unless you want to put in the actual access path. But if I do this for code signing, sometimes it produces an error, but it still applies the signature. Now, there is one more method, which I will show you if I can ever get to the VBE again. With the signature, if I look at detail, one of the things that you can do is you can also find a thing called thumbprint. There's various properties here. You might well have, and I know Philip Stiefel has got clients with the same signature name, but it's a different signature, a different code signature, but it's identically named. So he uses the thumbprint instead to sign his different items there. And you can do that instead if you wish to do so. So if we just now click on this again, remove that, click OK, close it. This time I'm going to put in a thumbprint value, close that. And I'm going to miss out the access path. And oh, it's being used by another thing. The file must be closed. And because it wasn't closed, I got the error there. Anyway, that works. I'm not going to spend any more time on that one, but I will just say that there is one more method as well that you can do, which is the way that I do it. Rather than even type anything into the command line window, I can just go to Windows Explorer, and I have got an app that is an add-in. Or sorry, no, it's not an add-in. Basically, it's an Explorer extension that Daniel Pinot published some years ago. And it's a bad place to have chosen here. So let me just open anything at all, which I've got. Example databases, that will do. And if I go to that one will do fine. I know I've got some things in there. So if I right-click on this, Daniel Pinot's thing is called Database Tools, and then he provides the code that allows you to compact, decompile, open exclusively, or open read-only. I've added a few more things in here, including safe mode, signing code both in my name, signing code in metadata systems, simulating runtime. Let's do sign code CR. Opens it, applies the code, and then a few seconds later, it will close it. It's now signed. I won't bother opening that because there's such a delay with that. Right, but each of those things work. So I thoroughly recommend Daniel's shortcut tool. You can modify it as you wish, and in fact, you can also adapt it to do different things for Word, Excel, and so on. It works with any command line property for the particular Office executable that you're dealing with there. In order to timestamp, though, if you've got a commercial certificate for a year or whatever, you want that to remain valid. You can't apply it to new files after that time, but to remain valid on files where it has been applied afterwards. Now, to do that, you need to open the registry editor, and then I've got an article to tell you more about this, and you will then need to add, sorry about the size of the font, let's just enlarge it. You need to go to current user, Office, and you then need to open, I'm going to maximize this because I can't see it anymore, Microsoft Office VBA Security. Where are we? Microsoft Office VBA. Can't see it. Can anyone see it? Because I can't.
Doesn't appear to be there, Robert.
No, it
Colin.
doesn't, does
You have
it?
to go into the version.
Yeah. No. Oh, right. I'm going to close that again, and Microsoft software Microsoft VBA. Oh, it's not under Office. It's under VBA because it's common across all of Office. It's the trouble about going to such a large screen. I couldn't see it. Right. And you have to add this folder, and then you need to add these particular keys and these values. I won't explain them now, but my article that I'll give you the link to later explains all those. This feature was added by, I think, the Excel team, but it applies across all Office programs there. So basically any valid timestamp will work for this. So timestamping, ironically, has the feature or functionality that allows your certificates, once applied, to stay valid even after the certificate has expired. I hope that made some sense. I seem to have got a bit lost there. Any questions on this particular topic? Ben, can an end user determine if a database file is signed without opening VBA? No. And it's one of the features that I've asked for is a way of doing that. In the same way as you can't find if a file is compiled or not, or you could do it from another database there. I've asked for an IsSigned property to be added, to a boolean there, if it's signed, true, and so on, but that hasn't been added yet. I hope it will be, but at the moment, unfortunately, there isn't a way other than try and open it from a non-trusted location. Do you get a security banner? If you don't, it's trusted. If you don't get a security banner from a non-trusted location, it has been signed. I'm going to move on then.
Before you do, Colin, sorry.
Oh, so I missed some questions. Go on.
Neil's got his hand up, and I've got my hand up after him.
Okay, Neil. Sorry, I didn't even look at that. Neil.
You said that a self-cert certificate is untrusted, and surely that's the whole point of it, because anyone can create a self-cert certificate, so it's a meaningless thing.
Yeah.
So what is the point of putting on a self-cert certificate? What does it actually gain?
It allows you to basically to test it out, test out the functionality before you spend money purchasing a proper commercial certificate from something like Sectigo or Comcast or whatever.
But the
It
fact
works
of the
on
matter is
your.
that it won't allow your application to be trusted by anyone other than your own.
Correct. It won't work on any other machine, even if you put it in the trusted root certification store, then export the certificate, then import the certificate on another machine and go through the same process. It still won't work. So it is purely designed to be for testing purposes. And the Microsoft documentation makes it very clear that it is not intended to be used with clients. And I've tried to find ways around it. I can't. So it works as it's intended to.
If you fork out on a certificate,
that will work on any machine.
And will that then override or obviate the need to go and change their registry to allow macros and untrusted people and so on?
They won't need, if you have a trusted file, a signed file by a commercial certificate, that will then open without any need for any verification or trust to be set. It will basically do all the trust settings automatically. So it will work whilst that certificate remains valid. If you do the timestamp as well, it will continue to work after the certificate has expired.
Yeah, understood. Thank you.
Okay, Aid.
A couple of comments, really. First off, sometimes you want self-cert because you want things to run on your computer. You design them for yourself, you want to run it yourself, and that can be useful. Also, you can have a server that's a self-cert on, and you can have lots of people logging into that same machine with virtual machines, and they can all have the benefit of that self-cert. But that's not what I mainly wanted to talk about.
I'm not sure. So can I just ask there? I'm not sure that I haven't tested it, admittedly, on a VM recently. I'm not sure that a self-cert, even if put in the trusted root certification store, would work on a VM.
Okay, well,
I'll try it
recently. But the other thing I was going to talk about was when we did testing before, Colin. I know that this was a while back, and I haven't been able to test the most recent version. But when we did it before, there was a step which you haven't included in your comments, which is necessary for that to work. And that is to ensure that the authority that the self-cert is issued by, which will be your machine, is also included in the trusted issuing authorities. If you import the certificate into there, I suspect it will work more as on any machine that you want to.
I did say that earlier. If you apply the certificate to the trusted root certification authority, then it will still not work on another machine, even if the publisher is trusted. If you can find a way of doing it, I'd love to know, but in a way, I'd be surprised if it still works, because the idea is to ensure that you use the commercial certificates. So maybe it's a conversation we can have separately at another time, Aid.
Indeed, and it would be nice if you and I spent some time, because I don't have that version.
Yeah.
But if I'd love to run it by you on your system and see if we can get something to work.
Yeah, I'd love to as well. Although in a way, if we do, it sort of defeats the object. But I'd love to try that there. It will. This will work on any version from 2016 onwards, though. It's one of the few features that they actually backported to earlier versions.
Oh, right. So
It's not 360. I don't know about if you had the old C2R version, but if you had the old MSI version of 2016, but any Access 16.0 version, command line signing, project signing does work.
Oh, right. So it should be on mine. Sorry, Neil wants to get in. I'll stop now.
Right. I need to be quick because the time is getting on. We're going to overrun today.
But it was just another quick question about self-cert.
Yep, quick.
Can you actually self-cert using the client's machine and therefore effectively sign it as the client's own thing, trusted on their RDS, so that then you don't have to relinquish the other macro facilities to keep the RDS protected from real viruses?
You can do self-cert on anybody's machine, but it would have to be, assuming they've got more than one machine that they're installing your apps on, right? It would have to be done on every single machine individually.
No, but if it's a server, a remote desktop server, then that's one machine.
Yeah, but you're applying the signature to the code, in other words, the front end. Surely your clients are not running the code from the front ends from the server.
Well, you do on an RDS. Everything's on the server.
Oh, on an RDS, sorry. Don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Try it and see it. All right, and let me know how it works out. Okay, I'll move on. A couple of years ago, after endless nagging from me, they finally added the ability to open queries in SQL view directly from the navigation pane. They did a whole series of other things, including adding that functionality to code and also to macros, but they left out the ability to create a new query directly in SQL view from the ribbon. So I kept on nagging, and eventually I got my way, if only just to shut me up, I think. Let me just go into a different database here. And this is one that I've used a lot for testing Monaco, and I can have Monaco turned on or not here. A whole series of queries which I'm going to open some of later on, but now you have this very exciting new button here. So when you open that, it's exactly the same as you did before. If you hadn't actually put anything in design view, you get select and the semicolon at the end there. So I can put in, for example, select star from let's find a table, I think called table cars in this one, and I can now run that. Don't need to save it. I can obviously save if I want to, but I don't need to. And I can make any other changes, so I can do that directly. Now, as well as that, though, you notice that as soon as I went back into it, it's expanded the formatting. One of the different things that they added recently to there was the expanded formatting. So if I just go to this slide and then come back to that app there. So these are the three different improvements. Expanded format, basically pretty formatting. Okay, that was added in the July version of current channel, as was partial SQL execution, finally been added there. And speedy loading will be added in version 2507, which should be arrived. I checked today, it's not out yet, but I think you'll get it within the next week or so on current channel there. So if we come back to that particular app, so that's the expanded formatting, as you can see there. Let's go to another one of these here. When I open this, if you've been using Monaco for a few months, you may have been amazed how quickly that opened. Literally, instantaneously for most of your queries here. In the background, as soon as you open your database, it then sets up a web view instance that is loading each of the queries in turn in a hidden Monaco window, and it works its way through, and over a period of a minute or two, depending on how much work you're doing, each of them will then open instantly after that. So if we go to SQL View now, you saw there it opened briefly, non-expanded, then changed to expanded there. Let's do another one. Okay, with comment lines there and so on here. Now, with these there, this sort of layout here works well, but let's just go to create a new query. And I'm going to paste in a query that I have already got on this machine. And I'm going to paste it in the standard format like that. Now, that's not pretty formatting. They've allowed for that if I press the shortcut Control+K, that will automatically expand it for that particular query. And then from then on, if you say that, you'll see that each time. What isn't yet available is the ability to put it back to ordinary unexpanded SQL. I've asked for a toggle. They're going to have an option to turn this on or off. Whether they'll provide the toggle as well, I don't know. But we're getting there with this. So with this different thing here, we've then got a whole series of different options here. What I haven't yet shown you is partial SQL execution, but I'm going to do that for a different query. This one will do here. SQL View. So I've got a query here with a series of filters on there such that when I open this, we've only got 4 records. When I go back to SQL View, if I now highlight the part, if I highlight, and you can expand the different sections there, highlight everything except the where filter there, and now go to Query Design, but click the drop down arrow, there's a run selected. So that's going to ignore the where filter, and we now get all of the records. For a union query, you could do one of the unions, then the other one, and so on. You can see the effects of different parts of the query, just as you've been able to do for years in SQL Server. You can also add temporary queries to your database as well, right? For example there, 22/7, I'm going to get it to calculate that. So if I now go to Run Selected, there isn't yet a keyboard shortcut to do that. You may just be able to see the first few digits of pi on there. So you've got partial execution, you've got speedy loading, and the expanded format features as well. So you've either got them already for these two, and you'll have the speedy loading within the next few days if you're in current channel. Questions? Oh dear, I've just seen George's comment. He's got 2507 this morning. That's current channel, I presume. It's not listed on the website, so I didn't know it was out, with a new bug. Can we talk about the new bug later, or is it relevant to this?
It's not relevant and it's very minor.
Okay.
I'm looking for replication though, so.
Right, can you look to see whether speedy loading is available in there?
Well,
Because I've got no means of knowing that. You'll know that from Task Manager if you've got a whole series of web view instances appear.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to start access. I don't have it running. Go ahead and
Okay, come back to that later perhaps, George. Any other questions from anyone about Monaco?
Yeah, speedy loading. It seems like, from what you said, if I've got a database with got 500 queries in it, and when I open it, it's gonna in the background open 500 instances of a web view
and shut them again.
I wonder how much overhead that has for a user who's never gonna open the query.
Next to nothing, I would say there. But yeah, I mean, there is obviously the potential issue there, but as far as I know, it has no noticeable impact at all. By using Task Manager, you're able to actually monitor what's going on. So if you open 10 queries at once, you'll get 10 instances of Monaco open in the background there. But with this, it's just opening, laying out the format, caching it, and then closing it again. So it is very quick, and it only does it at idle loop time. So if you're doing anything, that pauses. Okay, so it's my answer is I don't think it's putting any additional load resources on the system that you would notice anyway. Okay, I think probably as long as I've been using Access, people have been asking for forms to be able to be resized automatically to fit the monitor. And obviously over the years, especially if you've got older apps that were designed in 800 by 600 or whatever, they're tiny on modern screens and often unreadable there. So people have been nagging for a long time, and they've said for a long time, yes, they agree it should be done. And back last year, they promised that it was going to be added in 2025. And then, because they knew I'd done a lot of work on automatic form resizing, they asked me to do a presentation to the Access team of what I wanted to see from the feature. So this was my wish list. And I covered both things. They said they were going to deal with large monitor support, so I just wanted to clarify what that was, and said the obvious thing, and this was that they would remove the 22-inch form and report width limit. And that limit, if you aren't aware, is the integer limit in TWIPs of 32767 corresponds to 22.75 inches and whatever the centimetre equivalent is of that. And also affects the section heights as well. Less crucial, I think, but I said perhaps review that as well. I obviously didn't know what was possible in terms of this. They could easily double it to 44 inches by just using the other half of the integer range, but they're likely to do more than that. We don't know yet what. Allow forms and reports to be zoomed in form and report view. You know probably that you can already zoom in reports in print preview, and in fact you can do that with forms as well. I'll show you that shortly. But you can't do that in form view, nor can you do it in design view or layout view if any of you use that there. So I ask that you allow that to be done in forms and reports there. There is a slider in print preview for reports of 10% to 1000%. I said just use that in the same way on the status bar for forms. Seems they're going to put it to 500% rather than 1000, but it should be enough. Because I hate layout guides, I wanted to stress that it should work whether you have them on or off. Some people love them, I don't. I also hate tab documents and still use overlapping windows. Again, I asked for that to be done with both of those. And basically, just about all of that is going to happen. One thing I've been nagging about, though, forever is to allow an option for overlapping windows to become the default, which you can't do in Access options at the moment. I still don't think they'll do it now either, but I've asked. Responsive forms, the idea is, like my automatic form resizing, forms and all controls should resize and reposition automatically depending on your screen size and resolution. And you should also get that to work if you are stretching or shrinking your forms manually to resize them. That should include all types of control. At the moment, things like my automatic form resizing and other people's solutions, you'll find things like checkboxes you can't resize, nor can you resize option buttons or images on command buttons. You can change the font, but not the image size there. So all ActiveX controls, that might be a difficult ask, but the common ones at least should also work with this new setting here, and it should basically be future proof so it works with things that may be added in the future. Hint, hint, we need new controls. Reports have got a can grow and can shrink feature. It's in the property sheet for forms as well, but it does nothing in forms. So to add that functionality in form view as well. And it should again work with both types of layout guides on or off and both types of display. And to allow users, a bit like I think Steve Girling was saying earlier, to set any limits where you can turn this off for certain form sizes or monitor sizes or whatever, if that suited your preferences there. They've agreed to do most of those as well. And something I forgot about, and so I added it later, and they've apparently added it to the specification. Linda is the product manager for Access. I asked that the font size in message boxes and input boxes, basically the standard dialog boxes, would also respond to screen resolution. Scale up or scale down, depending on resolution screen size, or if they can't do that automatically, allow users to do that themselves, as you can do in many other things like Notepad and so on. What I was really glad about was to hear that they were going to do nearly all of that. What I hoped was I was going to be able to show you that, and I hoped I was going to be able to answer some of the questions that you may well have. But it's not ready for me to show you. They did a demo at DevCon back in April, but they got diverted with some important work that all office teams had to work on, which meant that the whole thing was delayed by 3 months. So let me just give you an idea of how automatic form resizing works. So this is a standard form with lots of different controls here. It's in form view at the moment. There is no slider down there. And if I click this button, there's a bit of flickering doing it that way. You'll see that it's expanded there, and all of the controls have expanded proportionately. That is all except the original checkbox. The dummy one works. The original option groups, the dummy ones do change, and the image on the buttons don't change as well. Let me just go back to the original size here. And I'll just close that and reopen it again. And you can see here that the checkboxes, the option groups and the dummy ones were the same, and were the images on both of those buttons here. I've done a bit of basically trickery to get them to work when resized there. Let's go on to form 3. Normally you wouldn't click a button to resize. Normally you would do that when you open the form. My machine is really slowing down here. Here's a slightly different size form. I've got some additional controls on here, a toggle switch, which is a homemade control. I've got spin control on ActiveX one. I've got a tree view. I've got an edge browser control subform. I've got a classic chart, which doesn't work so well here. Let's go to design view. And you can see here, that's the size it was. If I go to form view once more, it will automatically, when it reappears, resize to fit the screen. I'm not going to do it now, but if I change the resolution or change to a different monitor, I can then refresh that. I can also, though, zoom it up or down if I wish to do so. Let's zoom it downwards for a user who thinks that's all far too big for them. Slightly bigger. I can make it bigger for those with eyesight issues there, although they would then need to scroll. I could use the zoom slider in the same way, and with this I could tick that checkbox, and then next time the form would open at that zoom value. Let's put it back to there. I also mentioned shrink and stretch, and this was a feature I added about a year ago to my automatic form resizing app, and it's proved very popular here. So this one here, it doesn't resize automatically, but if I resize the screen there, it adjusts to make sure the aspect ratio is correct, so it's a bit of flickering there, all right, and then it's enlarging there. Let's maximize it. Everything's gone fine. Let's restore the original size, and if I want to, I could even shrink that. And it does it fairly well. It's not perfect at low screen sizes. Okay, and eventually if I get to a very low screen size, it goes a bit haywire. But you get the idea. So, and I said it was a bit haywire, it's managed to mess up the tab control. Tab controls are a bit of a problem. I'd recommend avoiding them if you use automatic form resizing. Let me just show you a zoom form a second here. I'm just going to minimize that main form. And I just want to show you a form zoom here. And I have enlarged this here. I'm going to change that to print preview. I should have changed it first. Let me just close the print preview. I forgot that I had enlarged that earlier on. Right, so hopefully then in print preview, I'll be able to fit this on a screen just about there. Now, this is what the slider will do when it arrives. So you will be able to zoom your forms, right, between 10% and at least 500%, okay, just by using the slider. They will also have these things up in the window there, right, to work in form view as well. What I can't do with my app is I can't get this to work in design view. They will be adding that. I ought to show you data sheets as well. Here's a data sheet. It hasn't been resized. I can zoom that, small amounts, or I can resize it, and I can also resize it and zoom it still further. And I can also get that to work with a standalone datasheet form as well. So data sheets work with this as well. They'll be adding that functionality too. And last thing I just want to show you on here is a modern and a classic chart. Now these are with the same data source. Notice how the modern chart opened instantly and the classic chart took several seconds to open here. And now if I click on the resize form now, the modern chart has rendered perfectly, the classic chart has rendered fairly well. If I bring it back and open it again, after 2 or 3 times, the classic chart will often mess up. But I've covered in this example app, I've covered other ones as well, plus all the problems there. I'm hoping that the new functionality from Access will, when it arrives around the end of the year in the current channel, I'm hoping that it will make this app completely redundant, but I don't know that it will do yet. So what I don't know yet is, and if I just go to the next screen, large monitor support will come out at the same time. They're going to remove the limit. The obvious question is, what size is it going to be? I've asked them. They haven't decided yet, or if they have, they haven't told us. I tried very hard to get an answer, failed to do so. But I get the impression it will be more than double what it is now. So it will be future-proof. They won't have to do this again for another 20 years. But if you have that setting there, you obviously need to allow for the fact that not everyone will have large monitors. So you will, to make sure that forms do open or your app doesn't crash there, they will build in ways of managing this for people who don't have that functionality. But as my very last quick demonstration, I'm going to show you how you can actually get forms larger than 22.75 inches now. Right, so here I've got a chart that can either be column stacked or a Pareto chart. Go back to column stacked and you can see that it's tiny. You can't read much of what's on there at all. It's exam results from the last school I was in, something like 90 plus different exam subjects there, far too many to fit in here clearly. Let's maximize that. I've got a 22-inch monitor, so width-wise that's about 18 inches at the moment. So obviously it's well below the limit. But I've got 2 monitors side by side. There's another one to the left of this. If I extend this, my chart has now covered the entire 2 22-inch monitors side by side. Total of 18 inches width for each, 22-inch diagonal. So therefore my chart is about 36 inches wide. Let's change it to the Pareto chart. And you can see now the Pareto chart is also visible there. This will work for any form at the moment where you've got a single, let's just change this to maximize, where you've got a single control that takes up the width of the form. But what you have to do in design view, go to the arrange menu, and what I do for this then, for this chart, click on that, arrange, you need to set it to be stretched down and across. So basically it will fill all the available space. And if you make Access take up 2 screens or 40-inch wide monitor, it will then cover the entire space. I don't know if there is a limit because that's the most I can test, but it works. Hopefully that made some sort of sense. Hopefully some of you will try that out as well. We will see, Ben's question, we will see, I think from the discussion I had with them and later comments, just about everything I asked for is going to be included. Some of those they'd already decided on, others they decided they were a good idea and they've added them. They may not be done in the way I've done them there, but you should get similar functionality, plus the additional functionality that they will be available in design view. And Ben, no, it's not vaporware, as I just said there. This is doing much the same as they promised they will add later. They will do it in a different way, but it will work in very similar ways. But my resizing, if they don't provide all this functionality, this will still be available for anyone who wants to do that. Questions on automatic form resizing or large monitor support? Just see, my customer needs a report with different pages. I can't provide that with different length limitations. The coming no limit will help. Great. I hope they will also cover the length limitation of, which is, I think, for the entire report, 200 inches, 22 inches for each section, but I think 200 inches for the lot. So hopefully it will be also covered, but we'll have to see about that. I don't know. A whole series of links. There's links for every single one of these features, at least one of those. And on my web article, you will be able to, if I could get to it at the moment, you will be able to see all of those links. If I just bring this across here, here's the web article. I'll show you the page for that later. So you've got all of the different links. There's links from those to other articles as well. And you've also got a link both to the presentation I've done here and also my wish list that I did to the Access team. So those are available on the website now. What's coming up? Well, we know that they're going to be adding source code, or rather restoring source code control, but doing it in a different way via GitHub. I think that will be into 2026 before that appears. It was a surprise when they decided to do that. Not a lot of people had asked for that, I think, to say, but they decided it would be useful to do. What a lot of people are concerned about, obviously, is the imminent arrival of new Outlook and then the eventual disappearance of classic Outlook in 2029 or thereabouts. So preparing alternatives for that, which they've said they will make sure something is available. And they've said that there will be another feature added to the roadmap in the near future. But we don't know what it is because they deliberately didn't tell us. So whether that's the source code control or something else, I don't know. But there will be something added soon. You can get the article there at isleofdogs.co.uk, AEU42, all those links there. Any general questions before, if he's still here, I hope Adam is still here, we talk about next month. But any general questions? Your slider control, I'm just using the ActiveX one that's built in to MS Com Control along with the treeview and so on. And it's all of these now work with 64-bit as well. The spin control as well. I tend to not use third-party ActiveX controls, although Steve Girling, who's just leaving or just left, asked me to get it to work with an iGrid control, and the next version of my automatic form resizing app, which I'll put up on the website soon, will actually work with iGrid as well. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the obvious thing. Well, they've got two choices. They either use the plus and minus range for the integer limit, which would just give them double to 45.5 inches. They've said more than that. So either they introduce a new number type, or they go to long and maybe use a cut down version of long. I don't know. I can't imagine. If they use long, I did a calculation on this years ago, you could have monitors that were 3 kilometers wide, and that would still fit in within the long integer range. So is it going to be backwards compatible? It'd be 365 only. It'd probably be in the next.
That's not what I meant.
What did you mean, Neil?
Illustration I saw them give, they were introducing new properties instead of using top and height and width, and they were going to
I remember
new properties.
I never saw them say that, so I think we've got to wait for them to decide to tell us what it's going to be. I wish I had an answer, but I don't have an answer.
Okay.
So one way or the other, they've said that they will make sure that your Access app will still open in a version that doesn't support the large screen, the large monitors. It will still open. You may not be able to use that form, or it may limit the size of the form. I don't know. Okay, so how does the resize render if you change the aspect ratio? On my example, which is what I was showing there, right, I keep the aspect ratio the same. Basically, I get it to make sure that the screen stays same proportionally, and then I just use one of the different dimensions, the width, in fact, I use there to actually determine the size and the position of each control. Yes, I was using special code, but as I keep saying, this is what you will be getting, or something very similar there. If you've got a feature request, where is the link to submit it? Either via the feedback portal, or you can put requests into any of the MVPs, and if we think that they are something that's worth following up, we will pass them on to the Access team. Right, Adam, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
I'm glad. Next month, we're pleased to welcome Adam Waller, who some of you will have seen from DevCon back in April, where he did an online fisticuffs boxing match, supposedly, with Philip Stiebel, who's got his own version control system, and Adam has got a different one, which is completely free, which is available on GitHub. And Adam is going to be giving a different presentation to what he did in April, and perhaps you can explain why that title and what you're going to be covering.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for the opportunity to be able to share a little bit. In the presentation that we did at DevCon, we looked at kind of a back and forth between two different systems, and there was a whole lot that we had to pack into a very short amount of time. And so some of it was pretty fast, jumping back and forth, trying to demonstrate as much as we could in the time that we had there. But one of the questions I think that comes up a lot when you look at something like version control is, it makes a lot of sense when you have a team of people and you want to be able to collaborate together and share it. And that absolutely is a wonderful use case for it. And, some tremendous benefits there. I use that with another team member that works on a database with me. However, what about just the individual developer, the sole developer? Does it really matter? Is it worth the effort? What are the benefits? Anyone that is an Access developer is probably there because they like the efficiency of being able to quickly develop applications and roll out changes and that kind of thing. So, we don't want to encumber that process with tedious, details and such. But that's where this add-in for me has just, revolutionize the development cycle. And so I want to talk about some of that and really focus in specifically on why this is a tremendous value for you, even if you're just working by yourself, managing different database systems for clients and so forth. So I hope it'll be a help for you. Again, it's just something that has been a great benefit to me personally, and I hope it can be a help to others too.
And just to reinforce the fact that Adam's version control add-in is available completely free from GitHub. His section is called Joyful Service, and you should be able to find that easily. But he'll be covering this next month, and the main point then is it's not just for people working in teams, it's also of great use for you as a sole developer. Marcus, because you've hung on, would you like to talk about October as well? And thank you, Adam. Sorry, I didn't thank you for that outline there. Would you like to talk about October, Marcus, when you're presenting?
Yes, hello, everyone. Yes, in October, I'm going to present my custom-built dialogs. And yeah, anyone who works with Access knows them all too well. Message boxes, input boxes, functional, yes. Modern, appealing, or user-friendly? Unfortunately not. This standard dialog seems, let's say, a bit outdated. And if we're honest, who actually reads these standard messages carefully anymore? Most people simply click OK without even a glance. But if we could change that. And that's what I did. I created some new custom-built dialogs. They're more user-friendly, they're more colorful. Actually, I use an HTML control, and with that we can show everything quite nice. We can use tables, something what I really would like to have in the standard one. I can use pictures if you want, emoji icons, whatever. Everything is possible. So that's something I would like to show you.
And I think you're covering one of the main things that people keep asking is to bring things up to date, because a lot of things are exactly the same as they were back in 1992, message boxes and so on. And, new controls, that's the sort of thing we need there. And I think a lot of people have wanted to do that. Some people have done their own versions, and yours look very interesting. So thank you for that. And I'm glad to see we've still got a lot of people here. If anyone would like to volunteer to do a presentation in the months after October, I've got a couple of people lined up as well, future months, but I've also got some gaps. If you would be interested in running a presentation, please just email me and get an email via any of the pages on my website if you don't know it, and we can discuss what would be suitable for this group. But there's a huge number of different things going on. The Access developer team seems to be as strong as ever, even if unfortunately Access forums are getting less busy and less numerous. Although forums are getting quieter, there's still a lot of people who visit and then watch these different presentations on YouTube. Okay, thank you, Marcus. Anyone, if you want to raise your hand if you've got any questions, or just turn your microphone on. George, your microphone is on. Did you want to say anything?
Well, I will go ahead and invite everybody to join us tomorrow night for Access Pacific. John Colby is going to talk about his experiences using ChatGPT as a coding assistant in a project he's working on using Python and SQL Server. So it's an interesting chance to see what AI can do or not do for a developer.
So that's Access Pacific tomorrow afternoon or evening, early evening, Access Pacific time, which is
6:30.
Yeah.
And it's what, 7 hours, I believe now?
8, I think. It's either 2:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning for UK, and 1 hour later than that for those in Europe there. So, but again, it will be available on YouTube. Thank you, George. Right. Do you want to, while you've still got your microphone on, do you want to mention what this new bug is in 2507?
It has to do with the database documenter, the database tools in the document.
Yeah.
If you select that and then click any of the 3 options, it immediately raises an error. And Philip has been able to replicate it as well. So, I mean, it to me is not a major bug.
Right, let me sorry, I'm just reopening Access, just sharing again, see whether I can.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, this screen takes a little bit of a while to open here. Right, database documenter. Okay, so click on an object here. Right, now what do I need to do?
It would have popped the error if it was going to, simply by doing that.
Right, did you mean these options here?
So are you on 2507?
No, I'm on 2509. I'm on beta. And but I've got a current channel on a laptop. I could check that there, but I've certainly something I don't remember seeing. So what error came up then, George?
I couldn't quote it off the top of my head.
Have you got access? Have you got Access open, George, on your machine?
Nope, I closed it again. Hang on.
Are you able to do that? I'll stop sharing. You should be able to take over.
Okay. Yeah, if I click database tools and it pops up this error. The expression FLD list mouse move you entered as the event property setting produced the following error. There's an error loading in ActiveX control. And that same error pops up if you select, well, I clicked OK.
Any object.
Any of these 3 under analyze. So I say again, it doesn't strike me as being a terribly significant bug.
I think I saw a report in one of the forums, same error message.
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah. So if we can get another, well, Philip and I have been able to replicate it, so I think we're ready to report it.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Thanks, George. So you're going to report it anyway.
Yep.
Dwayne, anything you wanted to add?
I'm good. Appreciate everything today. It's great.
Thank you.
I did go back to one of my apps and was able to, with the classic charts, to change chart type and legend and set those things on and off and whatever. It was not nearly as comprehensive as all of the changes you were making, but I'm not about to go back and try to duplicate it to show you were wrong.
Good. Right. Well, I'm glad I was wrong, but so you can do a lot more than I realized there.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a lot more, but a little.
Yeah, because on that, on the automatic form resizing app where I showed a modern chart and a classic chart side by side, and I tried to put a combo box on so I could change the chart type for the classic chart in the same way, and I got error saying you can only do this in design view.
I could send you a link to it's on my website. It's on my query by form, tiny little application, but.
Well, yeah, if you can send me the link, Dwayne, I'd
Yeah.
be glad to. I'll have a look at it. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
That error does occur in a brand new database with nothing in it.
Right. Okay. On one of the system tables, obviously. Right. I think I've talked long enough. I think it's time for me to let you all go. I'm going to sign off. I'll see you all hopefully next month. Adam will be here to present. I will give my voice a rest next month and hope to see you all again. Cheers.